So a couple of days ago, my dear colleague Emile posted a video of herself singing a Lithuanian folk tune. It was quite a beautiful song and setting, therefore I decided to try out some harmony and see if it works. Turned out to work quite well, so here we are. This is why today I want to share with you what I did there, because what I did there are just the usual questions everyone trying to arrange a song deals with, and maybe it's useful for some people out there, don't know. Let's see. Disclaimer, I don't speak any Lithuanian at all, which is the reason why in my arrangement I basically only sing oo and ah sounds. So please forgive me. The text means something along the lines, O forest, the green grove full of variegated birds, whatever that is. On a clear day, birds were chirping, on a foggy, kept silent. I didn't understand a single word when I arranged it, so I tried only to follow along the atmosphere that Emile created. So I began transcribing this tune. Also, please forgive me that I don't have the characters that I would need to write down the melody appropriately. You can actually fit it very well into a 3/4 meter, which I didn't do there because I tried to follow along exactly what Emile did when she sang it, because that is the foundation of my arrangement, of course. I tried to respect the phrasing and the pauses in my transcription. Actually, some notes she sings quite low. The G sharp actually is quite low. So those notes are actually quite low, but I like it, I really like it. It's really good in the expression that she brings. Something like this is actually a quite good opportunity to modulate to some Jacob Collier-like half-sharp keys, which I didn't do there. What you can see very easily is that the melody is 2 verses and each verse is split up into several phrases. What I always do first when writing arrangements is to look at the end of each phrase and decide where I want to land there in my key. The key here is F sharp minor, so it is very obvious that we land in F sharp minor at the very end. But the first phrase, although the melody note is C sharp, which can be part of an F sharp minor chord, I thought it's good to put up some tension at the end of the first phrase, which is the reason why you decided to land on C sharp major there, which is the dominant in F sharp minor. Of course, the very first chord should be F sharp, and the top note D in the melody suggests some kind of B minor chord. So already in the very first phrase, we have our main chords, the 1st degree, the 4th degree, and the 5th degree. Of course, what now works very well if you have like the space of 4 eighth notes is to fill up each remaining eighth note with a transition. So the bass starts with F sharp minor scale tones going downwards, and then the bass has to move somewhere else before going to C sharp, because otherwise you would both in the melody and in the bass go from B to C sharp, which is parallel octaves, which, let me state at this point, is not a rule that you must follow at any price. But especially in this opening setting, I just felt like doing an ordinary counterpoint setting could turn out to be quite good. What also works with the melody note B is a D, and this of course can be reached through another passing note. This is basically what the bass does in the first phrase. Very much Johann Sebastian Bach-like, I would say. And now it's for the remaining middle voices to fill up the harmony. For the alto part, I put that little extra note so that throughout the first bar we have a movement on every 8th note, which is quite nice. So then the second phrase. If you read the melody notes from the second phrase, you can see that it ends on a sort of F sharp minor chord, which suggests very heavily that here we can land on our tonic F sharp minor. But I thought that was too early. I wanted to go somewhere completely else.
And now for something completely different.
And somewhere completely else means that I have to leave the key of F sharp minor and then of course think of a chord that doesn't belong to F sharp minor and fits to the C sharp. And therefore I decided to land on A sharp minor, which is a chord that exists in F sharp minor's major variant. There it's the third scale degree. Now of course I have to find a way to get from F sharp minor to that A sharp minor world. This I did through completing the way to F sharp minor at the very first instance. If you have a look now at the outer voices, this is a progression that you find very commonly in the so-called rule of the octave, which is a harmonizing principle developed in the early 18th century. So the other voices would go like this. In the alto part, I decided to give it some extra spice by creating a non-harmonic relation between the E sharp in the bass. The E sharp in the bass has the clear tendency to go up, and an E natural in the alto part, which needs to resolve down, and then everything is fine. Because both notes have a very distinct direction where they are led to that really works fine. We actually land on F sharp minor in this very instance. Then, coming from the bass, I decided to reach A sharp minor through a kind of plagal resolution by going from D sharp minor to A sharp minor. And the D sharp minor is reached very smoothly through this transition note. The advantage is that both the E sharp and the D sharp are still in our ears from before. Back then, they were in the context of F sharp minor. Here, their context is changed, but the pitch is the same, so it's a little mixture. And the other voices just fill up the harmony again. Again, here with the alto part, I did something special because the B sharp, of course, creates like a little parallel fifth with bass. But the resulting melody now in the alto part is quite nice, I think. If you have such a hard transition to another key, then some nice melody helps it being a little more smooth. So for the next phrase, I decided to go back to F sharp minor directly. And also I wanted to end in F sharp minor by doing another half cadence. Also, the melody note F sharp before this half cadence aligns very well with some other stepwise diatonic movement. Now I looked, okay, which notes do fit very well according to the melody note. This is what I came up with. You see a little parallel 10th movement, which is a phenomenon that I will cover in my next video. And then some parallel 6th movement. So it's basically very conventional stuff. And now the middle voices again have to fill up the harmony. So until here, all the voices in this bar have the same rhythm. So naturally, I decided that my fifth voice should do another rhythm. And also you have potential for a nice suspension and do like a little figuration and then fill up the remaining chords. Also, there's again much transitioning through different notes like this, like this. And then, of course, for the end of verse 1, we also have to end on F sharp minor, but I decided again to put a little moment of shock to leave F sharp minor for a very short moment and come back to it immediately. So, like the first time, I thought of rule of the octave, but then going immediately to A sharp minor and leaving it immediately again. So it's like this bar is in A sharp minor and this bar is in F sharp minor. And the transition is very, very fast. So this is what I came up with. You can see in the alto that there's, right from the beginning of this bar, everything is adapted to A sharp minor. And what is nice about this B sharp being hold is that in this very instance, it creates a 9th suspension with the bass. Also, the way it's resolved, this is an augmented third. The melody has to jump downwards. This is actually a 4th. The G natural is actually a part of F sharp minor because it's the lowered 2nd degree. The alto here goes in parallel 6th motion with the soprano, and the baritone part does a little cadenza doppia. So cadenza doppia is when the leading note in this case E sharp, is reached 2 times, and only the second time the resolution to the tonic is also in the other voices. Here the leading note jumps downwards to C sharp, which is something you can see very typically like in every J.S. Bach chorale, that in the end the voice with the leading note jumps downwards, but this is only when the leading note is in the middle voice. And I wanted to have this low C sharp in the last chord because then there's a fifth to the bass, which sounds very nice, especially for a last chord. You could also argue I could have put the C sharp there and here an F sharp, but then there's lack of that middle C sharp I wanted to have, so I just put that resolution. Also, this jump from the 5th scale degree to the 5th scale degree an octave higher is also a typical clause found in early Renaissance music. So now the second verse comes and the melody is the same again. So I wanted to create some new colors, and this is not only by singing A instead of U, but also when looking at the melody again, noticing that the first phrase, again ending on C sharp also can fit to A major, which is the relative major key of F sharp minor. And before that, the melody is quite apt at doing some 4-5-1 progression to A major. And yeah, then it's only starting in F sharp minor again. That works very nice. Fill up the middle voices again. I also decided to put that unprepared 9th to the bass note. Sounds quite kitsch. So A major, quite nice, which is basically the reason why I decided for the next phrase I want to rip apart all of this completely again. And want to aim somewhere that is nowhere near, and also the chords must be quite unrelated and chaotic. So my aim was A sharp minor again. Looking at the melody notes, I decided E minor would be a nice following chord, and if then C sharp major comes next, you completely are forced out of your tonality that you've just reached. And from there I decided to go in parallel 6 motion again. When I noticed, okay, over the B there's going to be like a G half sharp diminished chord, then I noticed, okay, the D natural could be quite nicely reached through an D sharp, and the D sharp on the other hand is a 9th over the C sharp major. So we have E minor 9th, C major 9th, and then this G half diminished chord over B, then an A minor chord, which is also quite distant territory from where we were before, and this is evaded through an F sharp minor chord but over A, and this F sharp minor chord leads to an A sharp minor chord. There's hardly any relationship that you can establish between all of these chords. As I said before, it's quite chaotic, but on the other hand, especially for example in the alto voice, the voice leading is quite smooth. So this is something that sticks the whole phrase together. So for the second last phrase, I decided I want to reach a very specific sound at this very moment, a G major chord in its root position, which in the context of F sharp minor is quite a strong sound in my perception. And also I wanted to end on another half cadence at the end of the phrase, but this time not on C sharp major in root position, rather on another chord that suggests a half cadence which fits to C sharp. And this would be a so-called French augmented 6th chord. So a French augmented 6th chord, very shortly, you have a bass note, a third, a fourth, and an augmented 6th. This suggests that your next chord is over F sharp major in most cases, because the French augmented 6th chord is placed very lightly over the 6th scale degree. So the augmented 6th chord is the 6th scale degree, and the F sharp major chord is the 5th scale degree, then of B minor. With my 5th voice, I decided to put a note that usually isn't part of French augmented 6th chord. And you might argue, well, G natural in the bass and this G sharp should clash very hard. And actually they do. It works nevertheless, because both bass and tenor voice are reached and left quite consequently with some nice melodic way. So both melodies feel okay in their own right. It's only coming together. Very interesting sound. And I wanted to start this phrase on a D major chord because F sharp in the melody, and I haven't had a D major chord at such a prominent place. And of course, if you look at it now, the combination of a D going down to a G natural in the bass suggests some kind of cadence to G major, which I wanted to avoid completely. So therefore I decided I wanted to place a second chord, which is another way of saying a dominant 7 chord in third inversion, on the very next beat, and then placing an A sharp minor chord again, this time with a 7th that goes on in an interesting manner. Having a look at the alto voice now, one can see, okay, we have E sharp and G, why not do another passing note? And of course, if I have this, then I want to create another passing note as well. And this is very interesting, the D natural. I just wanted to put another dissonance to this chord before it's resolving down to the French augmented 6th chord. So the last phrase starts with an F sharp major chord, but of course has to end in an F sharp minor way. So the transition I decided was a little similar to the last phrase of the first verse. Then I decided, okay, I will put augmented 4th scale degree, which clashes quite nicely with the B natural in the top voice for a moment, and also forces the top voice to go down, which it does anyway, being the melody. Yeah, then it's just a 5/1 cadence. I decided that over this bar I wanted to have F sharp major going to E major 7, which therefore can go quite easily to A major 7, and of course another passing tone. For this, I actually don't know quite well anymore how this came into being, but through adding a G natural on this point, you could hear for a very short moment a C major chord, which is also a chord in F sharp minor that doesn't make any sense, but the relative quick transition to a C sharp 7 chord, the dominant of F sharp minor, is reached through smooth voice leading. The leading note jumps downwards again here, and the alto part does just 2 notes totally fine in F sharp minor. So, this is basically what I did with my arrangement of this Lithuanian folk tune. I hope you found it useful. Big shout out here to Valentin, who helped me with the sound design. Thank you, Valentin. You can find a link to the video with the whole arrangement down in the description below. Make sure to subscribe if you haven't already. Here is some 2 more videos of mine maybe you want to check out. So for today, thank you for listening and see you next time.